The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in a cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised. You are now entering the all-consuming realm of Shay's Paranormal Chat, where the things that are better left unsaid are actually said.
Shut up and sit down.
You're listening to Shay's Paranormal Chat. Paranormal podcasting done Shay's way. Tons of fun.
Dude, seriously?
A bit sarcastic.
Hashtag investigator, not hunter.
But always real.
Hashtag data, not evidence.
Don't get your panties in a twist.
Oh my god, really?
This is real, raw conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shay's Paranormal Chat, and I'm so used to saying TGIF that I'm not sure what to say now, so I'm just going to say thank you for listening to this bonus episode. I'm very excited to share all this awesome information with you. I've been looking forward to this, and everybody knows I had to reschedule last Friday's show, so here we are doing it now. This is a pre-recorded show, but I promise it will be awesome. My guest tonight is Micah Dank. Micah, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we begin?
Sure. So I was born in Long Island. I graduated from college in Manhattan at Hunter College with an English degree in language, literature, and criticism. And I had a job, and then I ended up moving to Boston in about 2013 with an ex that I'm no longer with. And we moved up there, and we didn't really know a lot of people when we were up there. So basically, she would be on her computer or watching TV, and I'd be on the iPad, which just came out at that time, basically. The iPad with the camera had just come out. So I had basically just been going down rabbit holes and just learning stuff. And I came across astrotheology, which is basically the study of – it's the mythology of the zodiac, basically, and how it applies. How those stories apply, the same way that the Greeks and the Romans had their own gods and mythology. We have our own, and it became the Bible. And I explain in my book series, my 6-book series, that I explain all this information.
And it was your first book, Into the Veil, or is that the latest book?
That's Beneath the Veil. That was the first book. The series is called Into the Rabbit Hole. Okay. And I have a 6-book publishing deal, and the 4th one just came out a month ago.
Oh, nice.
So the first 4 are already out.
So what is Beneath the Veil about?
Beneath the Veil is a story about... So basically what I do is I decode the Bible with the hidden text and the hidden codes. That's used in astrology. We basically use astrology to decode the Bible. It sounds weird, but it actually does make a lot of sense. And my first book is where I introduce all this stuff. And the first book is a story of Graham, who's a functioning alcoholic Harvard medical student. And he's just kind of going through life. He doesn't believe in anything paranormal or anything. He's kind of like, again, he's a functioning alcoholic, so he's kind of like hazing through everything. And what happens is he gets a call that his brother died. And his brother was a Marine in Syria. Now, I wrote this in 2013, remember? Okay, so I wrote that his brother was a Marine in Syria. And basically what happened was he has to go to Washington, D.C. to get a because the president's awarding his brother a medal. So he's going there for optics and everything to get it for his brother. On his way there, he's on the train with one of his best friends on his way to Washington, D.C. from Boston. And he stumbles across an old email that he had just overlooked. He was just going through his phone, and he overlooked it. He opens it up, and it's an email from an anonymous source. But it turns out that it was an email from his brother, and it's this long, encoded, wild, nonsensical email that doesn't really make sense when you read it. It just sounds very grandiose, more like a Jack Kerouac Into the Road kind of rambling in a way. And then what happens is he goes back home to Boston after not getting any answers because there's a debate whether his brother killed himself or he was killed, and no one's giving him real answers. So he goes back home, and his best friend, NP, gets a copy of the letter, and then he bursts back into the room after he goes home, and he realizes that it's a krypton. It's a crypto letter. So what he ends up doing is they end up having to decode the letter, and it takes them all the way up the chain of the government, all the way up to the Vatican and everything.
That sounds pretty cool. It sounds like a mixture of a couple books I know and a couple movies that came out after 2013.
Yeah. It's very much like National Treasure. It's very much like it's very much like the Da Vinci Code.
Angels and Demons. Yep, that's a couple of the ones I was thinking. But that's pretty cool. So, do you actually yourself translate these?
Yes, I do.
How did you learn how to do that? How did you ever think to do it?
I came across some rabbit holes, and I came across something called astrotheology by these guys named Jordan Maxwell and Santos Bonacci, who have basically they pioneered it, basically. And it's basically hidden codes within the Bible, right beneath the surface, that you wouldn't even know, that has everything to do with astrology. And I just became fascinated with it, and I realized I wanted to dedicate my life to it and to teaching people it.
See, I think that's really awesome. I know you don't want to give away how you do it, but can you give us an example, something simple that some of our listeners will understand?
Yes, but what I have to do is I have to go through the 12 signs of the zodiac and explain to you what each of them are.
Sure. Oh, yeah. For. I'm all in. Yep.
Okay, great. So let me just jump right in. Okay. Yep. So what I'm giving you right now is the cipher that you need to decode. Okay? So it's a little easier to do because I have a PowerPoint presentation, but since we're just doing audio, it's fine. It's not a big deal. I'll just be a little more descriptive, okay?
Okay.
So Aquarius is it's the man with the water pitcher, okay? And he's pouring water out. So when you hear words like fountain or the son of man or man, the sign of the man is Aquarius because he's the man sign, as Virgo is the woman sign. So you hear words like fountain or, the Baptist, John the Baptist, because that's how you baptize, is you pour water out of a pitcher. Yeah. Okay, now Pisces is the two fish in the water. Then Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. We passed it a month ago. It's a 12-hour day, 12-hour night. It's also, in Judaism, it's known as the Passover. That's when you have the Passover. It's every Aries. It's Nisan 14 in the Jewish calendar. Passover is when God passes over Egypt in order to slay the firstborn son of everybody who doesn't have the lamb's blood on their door. Okay? In astrotheology, the Passover is the passing over of the sun over the equator and on its way back to its height in the summer solstice. In Christianity, the passing over is changed and it becomes the resurrection of God's son. See, astrotheology is basically this. Astrotheology basically says that God's son, S-O-N, is actually the S-U-N. Okay, so basically God's son, Jesus, represents the sun. He's a solar deity. And the Bible explains how he goes through the 12 signs of the zodiac constantly. And Aries is also the age of the Jewish people. That's when the Jewish people became prevalent. That's why the Jews to this day, they blow the ram's horn to the sky because they're signifying Aries the ram.
So far, I'm with you. I getcha.
Okay, so Taurus is the bull, and it's basically as above, so below. When you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull on Earth in order to plant the seeds so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra, which I'll get to.
Okay.
Gemini is the sign of the twins, Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. That's the story of Achilles.
Yeah.
Then Cancer is the crab, and it's the sideways moving creature. So what the sun does is the sun, starting on December 25th, rises a degree on its axis every day. And every day it continues to rise an additional degree. And it continues to rise an additional degree until it hits June 21st, which is the summer solstice. Then after June 21st, for 3 consecutive days, the sun stays at its height. Okay? And then what happens is on June 25th, the sun drops a degree. And then it continues to drop a degree every single day. Now, it drops a degree every single day until it hits December 21st, which is the winter solstice. That's the lowest height that it rises. So they used to say that the sun was dead, or God's sun was dead. Okay, and then for 3 days, just like in June, it stays dead. So God's sun was dead for 3 days. And then its resurrection, or it comes back to life, December 25th on Christmas. That's why all the deities have their birthday on Christmas.
I was going to ask you, now, I can't speak a lot of other religions, but Christianity, isn't that why they moved his birthday to Christmas? Was because of the time of year?
Yes, it's because of that particular reason. I mean, the god
It's
Horus,
the darkest that most people are depressed is some of the reasons why they gave. Or I've heard, I should say.
Right. But it's mostly because the sun comes back to life.
Yeah.
See, the sun dies on December 21st in Sagittarius. Then it's dead for 3 days, just like Jesus was dead for 3 days. And then it comes back to life on December 25th. It's its resurrection. Because the sun follows this pattern every single year.
Gotcha.
Then Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So when you're talking about the kingdom of heaven on earth, or the kingdom of heaven in general on earth, they're talking about the sun in Leo, because the sun is actually the ruling planet of Leo. Then Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. So you remember before when I said you plant in Taurus?
Yep.
You plant in Taurus, and then the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo. That's why it's a woman holding a wheat stalk, because that's what they would do in order to make the bread. So when you hear the words bread or wheat or yeast or seed or thing of that nature, words like that, they're talking about Virgo. Then Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. It's the scales. Okay, and the reason it's justice is because it has the fall equinox in it. The fall equinox is always in Libra. And what happens is it judges God's sun in Libra, and then it sentences it to death in Sagittarius. So these are all metaphors, basically. The Jews always celebrate the new year around the fall equinox. And because it's judgment, the Jewish people also have what's called Yom Kippur, which is 8 days after Rosh Hashanah, the new year, where it's the day of judgment. Okay, where they go to the temple all day and they fast and they pray that God will keep them in the book of life for another year. So when you hear words, so in Virgo, you hear words like wheat, seed, yeast, you know they're talking about Virgo. Virgin, young woman, they're talking about Virgo. When you're talking about Libra, you know that it's justice, it's balance, it's judgment, talking about the law, taxes. And Libra is also wine season. So you press the grapes in Libra in order to make the wine. If you've ever been to a vineyard, there's some nice ones out where you are. Yeah. You know that if you go in September, October, everything is lush and full. Whereas if you go in the spring or the summer, like most people like to do when they have their wine parties, you know that it's empty. Okay? So Libra is also olive season. Okay, so when you hear judgment, justice, law, tax, wine or olives, you know they're talking about Libra. Then Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is known as the betrayer. And the reason he's the betrayer is because when a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. So it bites you, you pull it off, you see the pair of lips, but it's full of poison. That's where the mafia gets the kiss of death from. That's where that phrase originates. Okay?
Yeah.
Because the betrayal is the poison in the kiss. Okay? So it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. Because Jesus is the Son, and Judas is Scorpio. Each one of the disciples represents one zodiac sign. So the sun is judged in Libra, and it's betrayed in Scorpio, and then finally in Sagittarius, this is the man with the bow and the arrow. This is where the sun dies. This is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun, and the sun dies. In the Bible, it's translated to a spear, and that's in the book of Job, and I'm going to show you that too. But basically, I explained to you about December 21st. So whenever you hear the death of anything in the Bible, they're talking about Sagittarius, because December 21st is the death in the celestial year. Okay, and then finally, Capricorn is the goat. And the reason it's the goat is because if you look at the zodiac wheel, Capricorn is at the bottom of the wheel. And what happens is, if you metaphorically picture the sun climbing up the zodiac wheel one step at a time, signifying 1 degree every single day, it starts the climb in Capricorn. And Capricorn is the goat, and the goats climb the mountains better than anyone. So it's a metaphor. So those are basically it. Now, based off of what I just told you, there are names for Jesus. Now, Capricorn is the goat. So when the sun is in Capricorn, Jesus is called the scapegoat of Israel. When the sun is in Aquarius, he is called the Son of Man, the sign of the man. When he is in Pisces, okay, when the sun is in Pisces, the 2 fish, he's known as the fisherman of men. It's also why he could feed the masses with 2 fish on the mound. The ram in Aries, he's called the Lamb of God. When he's in Leo, he's known as the Lion of Judah. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo, he's born of a virgin, and he's called the bread of life. Libra is the scale of justice. He's known as the just one. These are all just names that are just given to Jesus, and nobody questions where it comes from. You just go, oh, this is his name for whatever reason. This is why.
This is what they refer, yeah.
Then he's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius, and it's why he's worshipped on the sun day, because he represents the sun. So now I can start going into a couple of the decodings too. Have you heard? Are you religious, by the way?
I am Christian. I am not practicing. I grew up Catholic, but again, I'm not practicing. As they say, I'm not a practicing Catholic.
Gotcha. Well, have you heard of the phrase "pride comes before the fall"?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's taken to mean that your ego will be your downfall. However, a group of lions is called a pride.
Yeah.
Okay? Lion is Leo. The sign is the lion. Leo is in July and August. That comes before the fall. The season of the fall. So that's how you read it astrologically.
That makes sense.
If I read you Micah 5:2, but you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from ancient times. However, so the prophet Micah says that the Savior is going to come from Bethlehem.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, Bethlehem is a combination of 2 words, Bet, which means house, and Lechem, which means bread. So it's the house of bread. Well, I just told you that the house of bread is Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk, right?
Yeah.
So the house of bread is Virgo, so that's the virgin. Okay, so the Savior will come from Bethlehem, the Savior will come from the virgin. You see how that's encoded in there?
Yeah, and I've actually heard that in other places that he wasn't actually born in Bethlehem, that it was a reference to what you're speaking about. So I have heard this other places.
Mm-hmm. So now I gave you the primer to basically decode this. Okay? I gave you all the keywords that you need to know. Okay, so I'm going to read you a passage from Deuteronomy, and I want you to just count how many signs from the zodiac you hear in it, okay?
Oh, God, a test. Okay.
Okay. So he gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So you see how many references?
I lost track, but maybe 14?
So half that. There's 7 of them.
7? Okay, so I counted too many?
There's some that you don't have that you're not sure about, too. He gave them honey from the cliffs. In the constellation of Cancer, there is a group of stars called the Beehive Cluster.
I counted honey. Yeah.
You what?
I counted honey.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Yeah, so honey is Cancer because Cancer has the Beehive Cluster.
Yeah.
Olive oil is from Libra. He gives people butter from the herd and milk.
I counted that one too.
Butter and milk?
Yep.
Right, that's the Milky Way galaxy.
I kind of took what you told me and other little pieces of what I've heard about astrology and counted whatever I could.
Right. So butter and milk are milk-based, and that's the Milky Way galaxy. And the center of the Milky Way galaxy is in Sagittarius. So the land from Cancer, the Beehive Cluster, to Sagittarius is your land of milk and honey.
Not in a bad way. I'm just trying to catch up.
So have you heard of what Jesus did when he went to the Mount of Olives? Have you heard of the Mount of Olives?
Yes.
Okay. So Jesus led his disciples to the Mount of Olives after his last Passover so he could teach them a few more things, pray, and then wait for Judas to betray him. While walking to the Mount of Olives, he gave the parable of the true vine. Yeah. Okay? Now remember vine, you're talking vineyard, you're talking Libra. So watch how this makes sense, because this is how you start to actually really decode things. Passover takes place in Aries, after his last Passover, so he could teach them a few more things. Then he walks to the Mount of Olives. Olives are in Libra. So he walks from Aries to Libra. Those are opposing signs in astrology. Opposing signs are very important. What is your sign?
I'm a Gemini.
So your opposing sign is Scorpio.
Yes.
Okay, and that's very important because that has to do with your chart and everything. But, oh, wait a minute. No, you're not Scorpio. I'm sorry. You're Sagittarius. You're opposing a Sagittarius. I was going to say, yeah, it didn't sound right for me for a sec.
I knew it was an ass.
Yeah, it's okay. So Passover takes place in Aries, and then he walks to the Mount of Olives. Olives are in Libra. So picture the zodiac wheel. If you have like a marker in Aries, you just cross the zodiac wheel to go to Libra. They're in Libra, and they are waiting for Judas to betray him. Now, the betrayer is Scorpio, remember?
Is that why we thought it was Scorpio? Because I thought it was Scorpio, too.
Yeah, the betrayer is Scorpio, which is right after Libra. Okay, so you cross it, and then you're waiting to go to the next sign. And while you're waiting in Libra, he gave the parable of the true vine. And that's vineyard. That's Libra. So you see how you start in one sign, you cross the zodiac wheel, and then you make a comment about Libra, and then you're waiting to go get betrayed in the next sign.
Sadly, not sadly, that's a bad phrase, sorry, but this is actually making sense to me. I'm actually following you, and I'm just in shock that you're asking me questions about the Bible that I can't remember, and as soon as you start talking, it's clicking like, oh, I remember that. Mm-hmm. But it's like full circle.
Right. So I'm going to go into 2 passages from Revelation, okay, to show you that it's not just regular books. It's all the books of the Bible. Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was a flying eagle. Now, the first living creature was like a lion. We know that's Leo, right?
Right.
The second was like an ox. We know that's Taurus, the bull, right?
Bull, yep.
The third had a face like a man. We know the son of man, the sign of the man is Aquarius, right?
Aquarius, okay.
The fourth is like a flying eagle. This I need to explain.
Yeah, I can't catch this one.
In astrology, the scorpion is the belly-crawling creature, okay? Remember how God told the snake, because of his deception, to crawl on his belly?
Yeah.
He's the lowest form of life on Earth. The Scorpio is the lowest form of life on Earth. Its astrological evolution takes form of the eagle, which is the highest flying creature on Earth that soars above the Earth. Okay? And the eagle's evolved form is the phoenix. And what is the phoenix but the story of Jesus Christ as the Son, S-U-N of God?
Yep.
It's a flaming item of fire that dies, just like the sun dies, and then it's reborn from its ashes later. Okay? So the eagle equals Scorpio. So you have Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. Those are the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. You have things called cardinal signs and mutable signs. These 4 happen to be the fixed signs. They weren't chosen by accident. And also, when you connect the solstices and the equinox in the zodiac wheel, it forms a cross, a perfect cross. This is the cross that Jesus lives and dies on, that God's Son lives and dies on, that the Sun lives and dies on. Okay, you're connecting the 4 cardinal points, the solstices and the equinox. These 4 form an X through the cross. So it's a beautiful alignment when you look at it.
So I have a question. I don't talk too much religion on the show. So do you think that's a coincidence, or do you think this all formed after the period of Jesus or before and they just fitted in? I'm trying to take religion out of it.
Right.
It's hard to do, but
the Bible was written a certain way. The Bible was an encoded astrology book that, if you read it literally, is the story about a man that saved the world.
Right.
But it's an encoded astrology book. I've already given you a bunch of examples.
So did the astrology already exist before the Bible?
Yes.
That's what I was getting at. Sorry.
This science, this particular zodiac science, has existed for 40,000 years.
Okay. That's what I was trying to get at. Like, did it exist before?
No, absolutely.
All right.
And the way that I'm decoding these passages is the same way that I decode them in, like, the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylonian creation tablet. You can decode the Gnostic texts, like the Book of Thomas, the Book of Judas, the Book of Mary Magdalene, the Book of Raziel. You can decode all of those the same way. This is how the ancient texts were written. It was to encode this information.
Oh, wow. See, I had no idea of that.
Yeah. So in Revelation 12, have you heard of this? Have you heard of the woman and the dragon in Revelation?
Probably, but it's been a long time.
So I'll read you the passage, and then you tell me if you remember it.
Okay.
A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns on its heads. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. So there's people that read this literally, right? And they think that there's going to be a woman in the sky and a dragon's going to chase her.
Right.
However, a woman clothed with the sun is a metaphor for the sun being in Virgo. It's just clothed in Virgo. Now, the interesting thing about that is that the sun, there's 12 signs of the zodiac. There's 24 hours in each day. So the sun spends 2 hours each day in each sign. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So when the sun is clothed in Virgo, if you look at the zodiac wheel, that's about 3-4 p.m. Okay, so the sun is full blare out there. So the sun is clothed in Virgo. If the sun is in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. If the sun is up, the moon is down. If the moon is down, the sun is up. Make sense?
Yep.
Another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. There's a constellation called Draco, which is the dragon. I don't know if you've ever heard of Draco.
I have, but not by name. I don't think I could have recalled the name, but...
Right, so Draco is the dragon. And its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 4/12 of the signs, or 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. So its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky. It's a metaphor. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about this constellation. So it's a metaphor. It's not something to be taken literally.
Which, that's why I find this so interesting, because I think most of the Bible was metaphorical. And many people took it literally. Still do.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to read you a longer passage and show you how it's all astrology. Okay? Do you remember the book of Job?
Yeah, a little.
Do you remember who Job was?
I should, but I don't.
All right. So his story is he was a righteous man who had everything. He had livestock, he had family, he had his health. He was very righteous with God. And Satan went up to God and said, if you start taking stuff away from him, he's going to curse you. So God and Satan made a bet. God said, you could do whatever you want to him, but you cannot take his life. So Satan said, okay. So little by little, his stuff started to disappear. His livestock would run away or they would be killed. His family started dying off one by one. Job can't take anymore, and he cries out to God. He doesn't curse him, but he cries out to God, and then God responds to him. What I'm reading you right now is God's response, okay? This is supposedly God's own words. He says, can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? That's how he starts. Well, the Mazzaroth literally means the zodiac. Okay? In Hebrew, the Mazzaroth means the zodiac. So he literally starts off by saying, do you know your zodiac? Over time, Mazzaroth becomes the word Mazalot, which survives in Judaism today as Mazel Tov. So you can only imagine how old that is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Mazel Tov, it literally means good fortune from the stars. Okay, so the Lord's challenge to Job, the first two are pretty obvious. It's, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Those are obvious metaphors for the stars, right?
Yeah. Those ones I would have even known.
Okay, so then he says, can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons or lead out the bear with its cubs? So the constellations are the zodiac above, and the bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. Then he says, who can tip over the water jars of heaven? That's Aquarius.
The pouring, yep.
Yep. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions? That's Leo.
Leo, yep.
Who provides food for the raven? That's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? That's Mariga, which means deer and is located in Orion. Who let the wild donkey go free? That's Acellus Borealis, meaning donkey, and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully. That's Lambda Achille or Al-Thalimain, which means two ostriches in Arabic. Do you give the horse its strength? It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver rattles against its side along with the flashing spear and lance. That's Sagittarius, the man with the bow and the arrow. Okay? And where it said the flashing spear, that's where you get that from. There's two important murders that involve the spear in the Bible. The two most important murders involve a spear. The first one is, the second one is Jesus, because he's hit with the spear of destiny to check if he's dead. And then the other one is Cain and Abel, the first murder. And Cain cracks a stone over Abel's head, killing him, and then he buries him. But Cain in Hebrew translates to spear. That's what it means. So it's just all encoded.
Wow, I didn't even know that part.
Yeah. Then he says, does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? That's Aquila in Latin for eagle, and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. Finally, his last challenge is, he says, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? That's Leviathan is the fish god. So that's the fish Pisces. Okay, so I can go book for book. I could jump around. This is all talking about the same stuff. It's all encoded astrology.
So here's my question. So do you think that everything in the book is a metaphor? Even the people, like...
I do. You're not... There are some...
I don't want to offend you or anybody else, so
right.
I was trying to word it lightly, but you obviously knew what I meant.
Right. They're all metaphors. They're characters.
Yeah.
These are characters in the story. The interesting thing is, every time they find ancient stuff, they always find mention of Solomon, mention of James, brother of Jesus. They find mentions. But you'll never find, the corpse of Solomon, in the same way that you could find the corpse of a 12th century king under a parking lot in England, like they did.
Right.
And date them. You'll never find that. You'll never find nails from a crucifixion. You'll never find all this stuff. These are all metaphors. These were just stories that were passed down, that everyone started taking literally after Constantine created literal Christianity in 325 AD.
Surprisingly, I'm following you a lot more than I thought I was going to, so you're good at this.
Thank you. And I didn't know that you knew what was about to happen. Yeah, no, so basically, I'm going to ask you some questions right now.
Oh,
okay?
boy.
And then I'm going to answer them. No, I'm going to answer them.
Okay.
I'm going to pose them to you.
Okay.
Okay, give me... basically, if I were to ask you the following questions... how Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, why his birthday's on December 25th. All this stuff is in the Bible. Now, I can explain that to you, all of it, with astrology.
Right.
So
You already explained a couple of them.
I did. I explained the kiss by Judas, dead for 3 days, and birthday on December 25th.
Yeah.
And why he had 12 disciples, too, is because they each represent a sign in the zodiac.
Yeah.
Okay? How Jesus was able to heal the blind. If you think about Jesus, the S-O-N of God, the literal Son of God, okay, like he's a human being, as the literal Bible says, the blind man came up to him and he touched his eyes and suddenly he can see. But if you're talking about the Son of God, the S-U-N of God, when it's dark, you can't see anything. And then the sun comes up in the morning and it touches your eyes. And then suddenly you have the gift of sight again.
All right. I'm with you.
Okay? Now, how he walked on water. Have you ever seen a sunset on a lake before?
A mirage. Oh, that's not the right word. That's desert. What am I What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not quite sure what you're looking for. But it's basically, you could see the sun walking on water. Right?
I play, yeah.
Yeah. How he turned water into wine. This one's a little more complicated, but I can explain it for you. The reason God is a man and Earth is a female, Mother Earth, is because of God's sacred fluid, the rain. Okay? It's called shemen in Hebrew. We get the word semen from it, the sacred fluid. Okay? God's shemen rains down onto Earth and impregnates Mother Earth, and from her belly everything grows. Food, crops, flowers, everything. Okay? That's why God is a man and Earth is a woman. So in Taurus, you have April showers bring May flowers because that's the season of Taurus. Remember, you plant, you plant because of you put the bull to work, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, you plant in Taurus. April showers bring May flowers. You plant the seeds for the grapes, and then it rains and rains and rains and rains. And then in Libra, you pick the grapes and then you press it into wine. That's how you turn God's water into wine.
Do you think modern day astrology, like when people read their zodiac in the newspaper, all goes back to this?
No, that's garbage.
You think it's garbage?
Newspaper astrology is garbage.
How do you think?
It's pushed. It's pushed because they don't want you to know the true astrology, which is what I'm teaching.
Okay. So you wrote the series to try to spread your understanding, your belief, and to have people understand all of this?
Correct.
Did people accept it? Have people...
Yeah, with open arms, basically. At least where I've been giving it. I haven't gotten really any negative feedback. And if I do, I just ignore it.
Well, that's how we all are. But to me, I just find it that a lot of people out there would understand this and would...
I mean, it makes sense. It's easier. It makes more sense than having to rack your brain to figure out metaphors that don't have any logical pattern behind them.
Right.
You know, I'm just using the zodiac and the 48 constellations that they knew at the time to decode this.
True. Very true. Because you said it was what? How old is it?
40,000 years old.
That's what I thought you said, but I didn't want to misquote you, so...
It's a lot to take in, and it's very jarring to a lot of people when they hear it.
But I'm following you.
Right.
I am following, and I am getting it, and I'm... Oh, the Ashkic records. Oh, I've heard of those before. How do those fit in? I didn't say it right.
The Akashic records?
Yeah.
So the Akashic records are basically, it's an ethereal record of it's not our dimension. It's a record of every thought, phrase, comment, conversation that has ever happened on Earth or will ever happen. And it's just a record of it. And there's people that can access it. One of them was the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce. And I write about this in my book. One of my characters has a out-of-body experience and accesses the Akashic record in book 1. I give a subtle nod to it. But what basically happens is they access this and they're able to give readings on like Atlantis and all these things that happened back in the past.
So, the pyramids.
Right. In regards to the pyramids, it's basically My second book is about the missing capstones that were on top of the pyramids and what fictionalized happened with them, but also it kind of breaks down the Catholic Church a little bit into what they're doing. See, the pyramids are energy devices. See, the pyramids, years and years and years ago, had a capstone on it, on each of them, and it would just transmute energy. There was a guy that about 4 months ago built a pyramid on his farm, and it turns out that the stuff that he planted in the pyramid grew 4 times as fast as the stuff that grew outside the pyramid.
Oh,
so
wow.
They're just energy portals. And I just basically break it down and explain what they are.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Last question. What can you tell me about CIA's mind control?
So that's book 1. And
Okay.
It's the story of it's MK Ultra. Has a lot to do with. Have you seen the movie The Manchurian Candidate?
I don't think so.
It was originally done with Frank Sinatra, and then it was remade with Denzel Washington and Liev Schreiber, and I think Meryl Streep was in it too. And it's the story. So it's basically mind control. It's what they do is they break your personality down, and what they do is they create a new personality. They create multiple personality disorder, and they basically can control one of the personalities to do things. And then when they use a keyword or something, they bring you to another personality, and then suddenly you have no idea of what you've done. And they've used this throughout history. So
it's like a mixture of multiple personalities and hypnosis.
Yes, exactly.
Oh. I could see that happening, and I can also see it being very dangerous.
Yeah.
So, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter or Facebook at Micah Dank. You can friend me, follow me. If you do, I'll reach out to you and have a conversation. If you're interested in the subject matter that I'm talking about, I sell autographed copies of my books direct, so I do that as well. And that's basically about it.
Since we didn't have enough time to cover everything because there's so many topics in here, can you throw out a few more things that are covered? Because it's 6 books. There's a lot of things I didn't get to. Is there anything else you want to throw in there just quickly that you mentioned in the books or anything like that?
The first 2 books talk about, besides MK Ultra and astrotheology, they talk about the Catholic Church and what they're truly doing behind the scenes. Book 3 is about a communication device. Let's see. Book 4 is about a pandemic. Book 5 is about the missing city of Alexandria, or the Library of Alexandria. And book 6 is just to wrap it all up.
All right, one last question. I lied. One last question. What is acoustic levitation?
So acoustic levitation is, and this is in my book too, it's how the pyramids were made. If you go to YouTube, you can YouTube it. We're starting to relearn this technology. You can YouTube acoustic levitation, and what it is they basically pump sound waves under an item, and it levitates it like a tinker toy. And that's basically what it does. Is if you use the right sound waves and the right vibrational frequency, it could lift anything at any strength, at any weight, just as high as you want it to go.
And so that's how you think the pyramids were made?
Correct.
Well, I'll have to check that out on YouTube. I want to thank you for being on tonight, and thank you for rescheduling with me due to my personal stuff that was going on. And thank you for tolerating me tonight. And you really broke down things, and you really explained things in a way that could be understood. So I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and I hope to talk to you soon. Thank you for listening, and for all things Paranormal Buzz Radio related, check out our website at paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.